Hey guys, it's Ms. Simpson here, and I just wanted to record a quick video just to review with you a little bit and then also teach you some new rules for when you are dividing decimals. Okay, so just out of review, when we are adding and subtracting decimals, let's say I have a problem like this. Okay, your rule when you're adding and subtracting decimals is you have to line up those decimal points. They have to be lined up. Fill in the zeros when you have spaces. So what that looks like is if I was stacking this problem to where I can solve it, line up those decimal points, okay, fill in a zero where I have those blanks, make sure that you're carrying the correct operation over, and then solve. That decimal then is just lined up all the way down for adding and subtracting decimals. That has its own set of rules, right? Multiplying decimals, you are basically treating multiplying decimals like normal multiplication until the very, very, very end. It's all exactly the same as it's always been, the standard algorithm, until the very end. So if I had this problem, okay, let's say this is my problem, all right? I'm going to set it up like I would to be able to solve it. My longest number is always going to go on the top. That is something that's kind of tricky sometimes. Sometimes the longest number might not even be the biggest value, but that's okay. The longest number always goes on top, and the smaller number goes on bottom, the lengthwise. Now, if you want to, you can pretend like these decimal points are just not here. Not there. I don't even see them. Do you see them? I don't see any decimal points in that, right? I'm going to ignore them completely until the very, very, very end. So let's solve like normal. 7 times 2 is 14. 7 times 4 is 28 plus 1 is 29. 7 times 7 is 49 plus 2 is 51. Now, once I take care of that 7, I'm finished with the 7 completely. I'm going to ignore this guy and move over to the 4. I like to mark out my numbers up top so I do not accidentally reuse them because that happens easily. Now, when I move over to the 4, since I'm now talking about a new number, I'm going to drop down a line. I have to remember to put the 0. Okay, this guy's a stinker. If you forget this 0, it can mess up all of your problems. So make yourself a note on your paper. Don't forget your 0 when you drop down. Now we're going to do the exact same thing with the 4. Okay, 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 7 is 28. Plus 1 is 29. I'm adding. 4 plus 0 is 4. 9 plus 8 is 17. 1 plus 6 is 7. Plus 1 is 8. 5 plus 9 is 14. That's 3. Okay? So now with multiplying decimals, totally different set of rules. We have done normal things that we are so used to so far. Here's the one new step. Circle the numbers behind the decimal point, and that tells you how many times you're going to move that decimal. Okay, so start at the very far right, and you're going to move back that many times. And remember, you have to count the numbers behind the decimal on both numbers being multiplied. And that total is how many times you move it. So we're moving it 1, 2, 3. And that is my answer. Okay? Dividing decimals, totally different set of rules. Okay? Half of math is just remembering the rules. Okay? So I'm going to share with you those new rules. And if I'm going too fast, feel free to stop this video, rewind it, watch it again. I have to try to keep the videos under 10 minutes so they're easy for your laptop and computer to download, okay? So let's say I have this problem, and we're not even going to solve it yet. In the next video, we're going to solve some problems. But I need you to know what the decimal rules are first before we start all the solving business. So let's pretend I have this problem. Okay? This is the dividend. This is the divisor. This would be the quotient. Quotient is the answer. Divisor is a number that is going into the dividend. So let's say in this situation, there is only a decimal point in the dividend. You're checking to see, is there a decimal here? No. If there's not, then what you will always do is just move that decimal straight up and solve, okay? In chapter 2, we were really, really big about putting your numbers in the correct spot, and this is why. Because if I said 7 goes into 2, that's not, 7 doesn't go into 2, right? 7 goes into 21 3 times. I have to put my 3 right there, right in front of the decimal. If I put my 3 right here, my decimal's in the wrong spot. That's why in chapter 2 we were so big on that, okay? So, if the decimal's in the divisor or the dividend, you just move it straight up, okay? That's the first rule. Okay, here's the second example. And I'm just making these problems up. If I solved these out, they probably wouldn't have very pretty answers and they'd probably go on forever. So we're not going to worry about solving them right now. We're just simply doing this for the purpose of the decimals. Okay. Let's say I have this problem. Okay. There is a decimal in the divisor. So there is a new set of rules for when there's a decimal in the divisor. I do not want there to be a decimal in the divisor. I'm not able to solve it when there's a decimal in the middle of this. So what happens is we are going to move the decimal in the divisor. We're going to move this guy right here, okay? But we have to be fair. What we do to this divisor, we also have to do to the dividend. So how many times did I move this decimal? Once. You would move it how many ever times you need to make that decimal point at the end of that number, okay? So I moved it once here. I'm going to take this decimal and I'm going to move it once, okay? Then when I rewrite my problem, because all these little loop-de-bops are in the way, okay? You need to rewrite your problem. Half of long division is staying organized. I've watched some of the smartest people, because of their inability to keep their work organized, miss problems. And it wasn't because they didn't know it, it's just they really struggle with the organization. Keep your numbers lined up, keep your work organized, and it'll prevent a lot of problems. So the new decimal point's right here, right? That's where we want it, is at the end. So I'm not even going to put it back in this. When we moved the decimal in the dividend, it's between the 8 and the 9. So now that there's no decimal here, decimals in between the 8 and the 9, then we're going to move it up, and we can start our long division process like normal. And as long as I make sure that I'm putting my numbers above the correct number in the quotient, we're back to chapter 2, what we've been used to, right? What we were doing all of chapter 2. You just have to slide that decimal point around a little bit and then solve like normal, okay? So just to review, if there's not a decimal here, then you just move this straight up. No big deal. That's the easy stuff for us. Now, if there is a decimal in the divisor, that's when you have to move stuff to the end, okay? We're going to look at one more example. Maybe one, maybe two. We'll see. So, let's say okay. Uh-oh. What if I have this? Tricky little guy, huh? So I have a decimal here, right? That's a problem. Anytime you see a decimal point in this divisor, red flag, we have to know, we have to do something about that decimal point, okay? So we do not want a decimal before or in the middle. We need it at the end. We need this to be a whole number so we can do our long division process, okay? So we need to move this guy once to be at the end. But there's a problem here, and that's with this 86. Where is the decimal point 86? Because I don't see one. Where's it at? There's not one. There's not one, right? So that's a whole number. So where's the decimal point in a whole number? At the end. So they didn't have a decimal in this number, but I have to know, since that's a whole number, the decimal's here. Now I moved this guy once. So I have to be fair. If I move this one once, I also have to move this one once. Whatever I do here, I also do here. Every single time. Exact same thing. So I'm going to move this one once. There's nothing here. What would I need to fill in? A 0. Okay. Now I'm going to rewrite my equation because I need to stay organized. I want to get the answers right. If I'm going to have to do all this work, then I'm going to make sure my work looks good. That way I can not make mistakes because I have all these loopties in the way and stuff. So I'm going to rewrite it. The decimal was here, right? So it's going to go straight up. I'm going to solve like normal. I'm going to decide how many times 42 would go into 8. How many times 42 goes into 86. When I find out how many times 42 goes into 86, I would put that number right above the 6. Super, super, super important. Okay? Because if your decimal's in the wrong spot in your answers, the problem is wrong. Okay? Decimals are really important. They change the value greatly. Okay? So in the next video, we're going to look at some of the work that you have this week. We're going to do some examples together. And we're just going to help you get the ball rolling on long division with decimals. Okay? Thanks, guys.